evening. Thank you again to the council candidates and to the public who posed the questions. A very informative time. I have again questions for the mayoral candidates individually, and then I have a number that are addressed to both of you. So I'd like to introduce Mark, sorry, I asked you and then I did it back. Mark Durham and John Ranta as our mayor candidates for the 2014 election. They again will be given a 3-minute opening speech opportunity, then we'll address questions, and then they'll be given a 1-minute closing opportunity. I guess you guys all kind of know what the system is because you just watched it. So, Mark, if you want to start with your opening comments.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really great to see you here. I really thank the Chamber and the TV Society for setting this up, and for Sue to be the moderator is great. I've lived here in the area since 2006. We came to BC to live our dream of a small farm, so we bought that. My aging parents came with me, and I bought the Moritz's Cabins property down by the park, in part because I sort of thought it was a good investment and they could live there, and that was how it worked out. Until my dad died in the Ashcroft Hospital, and then my mom decided to move away. So since that time and through my time here, I've done quite a number of other things. I've written grants for Cache Creek and Ashcroft. Just to point out, fundraisers like economic development officers are expected to raise more than their salary. I raised $400,000 for Cache Creek and was paid $10,000, so that's a 40 times return on that investment. So I would expect economic development officers to do something similar, and I'm fairly much in support of them. And if you have questions about that, well, we can answer them later. So I've been very, very busy. I've helped on 2 elections, training all the election workers. And I have not had as much time in town as I would have liked. Normally I do get involved in community, but I follow what's going on, and some of it's been great. Infrastructure improvements, really important. A lot of the services, excellent. Some of the mistakes made in decisions in terms of purchasing have to do with either rushing decisions, or I would say a lot of mistakes are happening now because of how terribly slow things actually progress or don't. So one of the things that got me very concerned, because as a property owner, was I really was never aware that the official community plan added a development permit requirement for that statutory right-of-way that Lisa described. It also actually says you're responsible for putting in a trail along the river, each property owner on the river. And I was pretty busy working at the time that came up and never really heard that that was part of the plan until my neighbor Jim Douglas got hit with the first requirement for that. He wants to build a garage, and he's supposed to put a path in front of his yard. But if you take a look at that place, it goes right through his driveway, and it reaches my yard and stops. So I think sometimes the thought is great, but the practical reality doesn't totally make sense. And I think all the people along Collins Road who front on the river would feel the same if you try to put a path down their backyards and take up a chunk of that. I'm not sure this is really the best idea. So I started to wonder, what is going on, and what is the impression that I'm getting? And I'm more of a doer than a complainer. I really like to look into things, and I've done a huge amount of research. And I had to make a decision when I was concerned about some of these issues. Would I run for council or would I run for mayor? And the reason I'm running for mayor is because, I'll be very frank with you, in this town I don't think the councillors count for much. I think you have 2 people who've run the town for 24 years, and I think that they need 1 additional vote, and they get whatever that setup requires. And they are not really consulting well with you folks. I had to fight to get public documents out of this government because they don't provide that as a matter of course, as required by law. That's the time?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some of my concerns.
Thank you. Okay, John?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to wish you the very best of luck in the upcoming election, Mark, and congratulate all the council members who have decided to put their names forward. With 6 council members and 2 mayoral candidates, it creates a great opportunity for us to meet with you to hear about what your concerns are related to the future of the community. And really, I think we're at a bit of a watershed moment in the Village of Cache Creek political history. And what we're being asked to make a decision about is, are we going to consider taking a step into the unknown? For the past many years, we have been pretty well managed, fiscally managed. We've managed to create an environment in the village where we have free swimming, and it's not very often when you do an initiative in a small community that hits the front page of Kamloops Daily News, but that initiative did, right on the front page of one of the last issues of the Kamloops Daily News. We have a free fitness center down the basement here. We've got fitness equipment at the park. We've been making continual improvements in the Village of Cache Creek. And the question is, do you want to see continual improvements, or do you want to see a step into the unknown? When I got elected, the Village of Cache Creek had the 13th highest debt per capita for each one of you of any of the 85 municipalities in the province of British Columbia. Now we're debt-free. We have money in the bank. We've got a bright future, and I would like to have the opportunity to help realize that bright future. There's no other community in the province that has a better opportunity to become the model small community in British Columbia than the Village of Cache Creek does. When it comes to taxes, let me show you where we're at right now. This is the residential tax rates. Residential tax rates in the Village of Cache Creek compared to Ashcroft, Clinton, Kamloops, Lillooet, Logan Lake, Lytton, and Merritt. And for those of you at the back who can't possibly see all these lines here very clearly, this is Cache Creek right here. The lowest taxes by far in the region. So why would we consider stepping into the unknown when we've achieved this? As well, and there have been a number of questions for the councillors.
That's time, John.
What would you do about
time.
Economic development?
You can do it in your wind-up, John.
Here's business taxes.
John, your time's up.
I'm
bossy.
I can hardly say hello in 3 minutes.
I know, that's why we have a timer. Thank you to both our candidates. Obviously, both very passionate about what they're running for. So now we'll start with the questions that were given. Mark, the first one for you is, do you have a plan for how to deal with the fact that you don't live right in Cache Creek?
Well, I certainly have been in touch with what's been going on in the town, and I don't think it's a very big disadvantage. I'm committed to doing this. I'll probably reduce the amount of time spent on the farming. I'll spend more time maybe on the business, because it's always been a tough balance. And absolutely focus the council on what council is supposed to do, and that's manage, which doesn't mean you sit in the office every day all day, but it means that you get things organized the way I have in the past with many, many organizations, so that things operate correctly, and you involve more people, so you spread the burden across many people, you get many ideas from the community, and the burden is not all on the mayor. The mayor is like a convener for the community and gets things happening.
Thank you. And for Mayor Ranta, since you are certified by the Local Government Leadership Academy, why are provincial laws and our own bylaws not being followed? In particular, there is no posting of time, location, and agendas of committee meetings.
Thank you. The community charter requires that there be statutory committees, and we have a procedure bylaw established and adopted by council that also requires these statutory committees be established by the mayor. That has been done. However, when you have a change in administration and the procedure bylaw, which is just one of many bylaws that we have, and the procedure bylaw specifies that the administrator shall prepare minutes and distribute committee meeting agendas and all that sort of stuff, it may not have been kept right up to date. The last time the procedure bylaw was amended was in 2010, and the reason it was amended is because the existing practice of council did not meet the requirements of the procedure bylaw. So it is a flexible sort of thing, and probably the procedure bylaw needs to be adjusted again so that it reflects what's required in the Local Government Act or the Community Charter, and we need to ensure that our administration follows that law.
Thank you, John. And this is a question for both candidates. What should the mayor's role be in relation to councillors and the village administration? Mark?
So in this organization, the council should be the group that is supervising what's going on and setting policy, and the administration are responsible for carrying it out, and those should be very separated. The degree to which the political decision makers get involved in actual day-to-day activities of the village makes the administration very difficult. It makes application of rules and bylaws uneven. It leads to a situation where people feel that only a few people feel that the person to go to is the mayor, when often it's the administration that they should go to. And the mayor should have a bigger vision. They should be bringing council together, and they should also be developing councillors so that out of your council comes your future mayors. And that's not really going to happen as long as you keep the situation that you have now. Councillors are not getting a chance to develop. Sometimes they're undercut at the council meetings, and I have seen this personally. And I feel that what needs to happen is that we look at giving each their clear responsibilities. They take a lead, they work with members of the community on their committee as can be done. And I must say that the bylaws currently say that all of the committees should be open to the entire public. In fact, this is your community. Everything about the government operation here should be open to you, and you should be able to be involved in sitting in on any meeting that is convened of the committees and the council, as you do now with the council. And that way, you can be involved in understanding what's going on. And none of that is supposed to be held confidential or secret unless it's required by very serious freedom of information concerns.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. The thought that council is not being somehow empowered by the mayor, I don't really understand. Because in 2009, we developed together, your council, we developed the Village of Cache Creek Strategic Plan. And then in 2010, we developed another strategic plan that built on the first one. And then in 2010-11, we updated our strategic plan. And all of council are involved in the development of the strategic plan process. 2012-13 is another strategic plan. Here's 2012 to 2014. And many of the initiatives, or most of the initiatives identified in our strategic planning exercises have been completed. And I believe that our
John,
councillors feel, am I done?
No, it's just, the question is, what's your role in relation to councillors and administration?
Well, I can manage that. My role in relation to councillors is to ensure that they're fulfilling their responsibilities as committee members, and we've got councillors assigned to a variety of different committees in the administration of the village, and they all do an outstanding job, work together in the budgeting process, in the strategic planning process, and in the development of future initiatives in the village of Cache Creek.
Thank you, John. Okay, a question for Marg. In your pamphlet, you want to revisit the transit bus service for Cache Creek. Is it your intention to bring that back like it was before, and what do you estimate it will cost?
Well, that is one of my primary concerns, and so what I've done is spoken to Ashcroft administrator with regard to what has been happening with that transit. As I've gone door to door, I have heard many, many people who are really, really concerned about losing the bus. Some of them are seniors who can't drive down to the pharmacy or to shop. Some of them are low-income people who don't have a vehicle. There are some really serious situations in town, and sometimes this is a public service that we might need. Mayor Ranta said maybe we need a handy bus, but we don't have a handy bus. Nothing's really being done about transportation. So they have changed the system. Things have changed. They have had an injection of support from Area I, so they're going to more communities, so that's spreading the cost amongst Savin and Wallachine when they go down to Kamloops. So things have changed. They've reduced the number of days of operation, and they are clearly making it work for that group of people. BC Transit has eased off, I think, on some of the costs. Now, I couldn't get specific costs at the time, but we should be at the table, and that's one of the things that we should be looking at in terms of regional cooperation, because it is one of the things that will bring some people to Cache Creek that wouldn't come here, and they would come from Clinton probably to check out our restaurants, just like we would have people going to Ashcroft, and they'll be able to come here more easily. So there's a lot of pluses, and I think we have to look at it. They could not give me a cost right at the time I was researching.
Okay, for John, in your years as mayor, you've had 0 population increases, 0 business increases, so what makes you think you can improve in any of these areas?
I'm not certain who asked that question, but obviously they haven't checked the Statistics Canada website, because I do have some statistics related to the population of the village of Cache Creek. And what you'll notice is that in the time I've been elected, our population went from 1,007 to 1,040. Now that's not a very big increase, but still it's a 3.28% increase. And in the same period of time, the village of Ashcroft lost 5.02%, the village of Logan Lake lost 12.86%, the village of Lytton lost 31.94%, the village of Clinton lost 3.92%. So at a time when most small communities are suffering population erosion, Cache Creek is holding its own, thank you very much. And one thing I would add on to that is that the elementary school population last year in the village of Cache Creek was 76 students. This year, the population of the elementary school is 93 students. That's a 22% increase in the population of elementary school students in the village of Cache Creek. And we've asked the question, did those students come from Ashcroft because they don't want to be going to a K-12 school? And the answer was no. These are new students that have moved into the local area. And so I would say that as a result of, this is the business tax form right here.
John, you're getting off topic.
No. I would say that as a result of the policies that council has put in place, that it is having the desired effect of attracting more people to our community. And you can see that if you have a business that's, say, assessed at $500,000 in Ashcroft, it will cost you about $10,000 in taxes annually, compared to the same building in Cache Creek, $2,500. So in 10 years, you save over $75,000 by locating such a business in Cache Creek. That's what you call economic development.
It's like herding cats. Okay, this is to both candidates. Specifically, what ideas/visions do you have for future economic development and diversification? And specifically, what steps would you take to see it happen? Mark's gone first both times. I'll let John go first this time. Stay on topic.
Last time there was a question for both. She went first.
I know, that's why I'm letting you go first.
So here I am, going first on that one. What are you going to do about economic development, basically, is what I heard in
And diversification.
and diversification in the question.
And specifically, what steps would you take to see it happen?
And what we've done so far is we undertook to do an economic development study. I think some of the councillors were correct. One of the industries we need to focus on is the trucking industry, and try to ensure that Cache Creek is attractive to trucking companies to locate in our community. It's not universal, and I see some head shaking going on. It's not universal, and there are some people won't want to embrace the trucking industry, but when you stop and look at our geographic location at the junction of Highway 1 and 97, if we can find a way to attract trucking business to something like our industrial land that's presently owned by Belcorp, then I think we are a step up on other competing businesses. Now, what would you do, and what have I done? Well, there was a news article on BCTV News about a company that's called Williams & White Machine. And the owner of Williams & White Machine was complaining about how high the taxes are in Burnaby. So I phoned up the owner of Williams & White Machine, told him what the taxes were in Cache Creek, and said, hey, have you ever considered relocating to Cache Creek? We've got a machine shop that's for sale here, and those sorts of things sometimes result in progress. The other thing that we've done is when Chase was going to have the Pinnacle pellet plant out in Chase, the community chased, as appropriate to their name, chased the industry away from their community. They didn't want a pellet plant downtown. So I spoke with the mayor, Ron Anderson, who I've known for years, asked, would you mind if I contacted Pinnacle, got in touch with them and said, hey, would you consider looking at Cache Creek? We've got the port down in Ashcroft, we've got a highway junction, we've got the veneer plant in Lillooet, we've got the chasm up in 70 Mile, we've got mills in Merritt. Surely to goodness, this would make a good area to have a pellet plant. And what I suggested was, we've got industrial land here in Cache Creek that is developable. So what I did was get in touch with Russ Black, who's the vice president of Belcorp, and said, hey Russ, I just tried to get rid of some of your property and sell it off to a Pinnacle pellet plant. He says, oh, that's a great idea. Why don't I give the president a call? Because when we get these reciprocating engines in producing electricity, and there will be 2 installed next week, not up and running, not producing power yet, but the 2 engines of the 3 will be there next week. He said, what we can do is utilize the heat from the engines as an incentive for the pellet plant to locate here in Cache Creek. Great, Russ, thank you. Apparently, fiber supply is the single constraint in whether or not you get a pellet plant. And fiber supply is very tight these days, but at least we are on their radar. So those sorts of initiatives, I think, are important for economic development. But really what we need to do is provide each of you with a copy of our tax rates so that you can tell your friends what your taxes are in the village of Cache Creek, how much you pay for utilities, and utilize the entire network of the community to go out like tentacles on an octopus and ensure that people understand what a lovely place it is to live here and how affordable it is. All of you can act as economic development officers on behalf of the entire community.
Thank you, John. Mark?
Hi. Okay, on this one I'm going to have to ask equal time, okay? Because this is really something I've thought a lot about. And I have a 35-year track record of starting fundraising programs, and that means making a plan, figuring out what best practices are in that field, getting out there and putting it into implementation with volunteers and with your supporters in the community and making them happen. So that's one thing I've done. Community programs, similar thing. I have taken a look at what's been going on with economic development, and since this report in May 2013, it may as well not have been written, because most of what the Economic Development Committee is dealing with is the same issue every single meeting, and nothing is ever really getting done. So I'm pretty clear on that. So what I'd like to do to diversify is I'm all for the trucking industry, and I've already talked to a number of the industries in town and talked about what can we do. How can we find a place to put a truck parking facility so we don't have them all over the streets of town? What is it that they really are looking for, and can we get a group together? So I've started that. A couple of those people that I talked to on the main street, one of them, the new fellow at who's putting the big investment in at Knights Inn, and also another one, said, well, we've never met your mayor of your town, and one of those is a business that's been here 15 years. So there's a big problem with our communication with our businesses here. I'm all for the councillors who said, here we are, we're in a major transportation route. People come through here all the time. They are truckers, they are visitors. The impression they get of this town is the impression that they take away. Is it worth coming here to invest in or not? So we have to improve that appearance really fast. We can't wait around, we've got to get that done. So what I'd like to do is focus our attention on our 50th anniversary of the Communities Incorporation in 2017 and aim for some really good celebratory events there for that year that the community can plan, and maybe one or two of those can become tourism events that we can carry on with every summer, so we have something for tourists to do here. Then what I want to do is I want to go right back to this report from 2009. It was looked at, it's a seniors housing needs assessment. It said there is a need for seniors housing. Some ideas were looked at, hit a little roadblock, it's never been seen again. Okay, we can't do that. The seniors of this town are a quarter of the population now. They're going to be 30% in 10 years. They are getting older, and they're thinking about leaving this town, and if we don't keep them, we're going to lose tax base. So if we can improve seniors housing, we can do what Merit's doing. They are bringing people who need seniors housing care homes and putting them in the care home there, and sometimes the family's moving with them so they can stay close because they are pretty much semi-retired. Once mom and dad are in their 80s, the kids are in their 50s, they might retire. I've talked to people here in town who said, we love being here because we could buy a house mortgage-free, having sold on the coast, and they like it. Now, these are individual examples like John can give, but what do you do to turn that into a plan? You have to get out there and market that. You put that into a package, and instead of one-off conversations with the mayor, you hire somebody to get out there and get that message where it has to go. Go to the home shows, go to the RV shows, say, you could live in a house here, buy it outright, and travel wherever you want and have the life you want, because that's what we have to offer. So it's not a marketing plan until you market it. It's not an economic development plan until you get to the people who have to hear that. So the same with every industry. On tourism, we can have an officer that gets out to the tourism shows and really coordinates with our business community here to make the most of it. On trucking, get out to the trucking shows, advertise in the right places. We're just not doing those things, and there isn't a sort of a sense in the center of the community here, in the leadership, what does it take to get this done? And those are the things I would do. Now on seniors' home, if that had been started 5 years ago, we'd mostly be all the way to having that here now. But the reality is that creates construction jobs, that will bring potentially some care professionals into town. And I know the health initiative in Ashcroft is starting, and I think it has a really good chance of keeping a good, strong medical practice that will serve the entire region here, so we don't have to worry so much about health being a drawback in our community. Once we've got that, we are going to be able to sell this town, and I know how to do that, and you've heard some councillors who have really clear background on how to do it as well. Sorry, I'm running out of breath. I have so much I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, a question for John. What about water quality? What is going to be done to improve the quality? And then in brackets it says hard water.
Well, As most of you know, we spent $2.2 million on a water treatment facility. Essentially, what that came as a result of is a requirement by Interior Health to ensure that we have residual chlorine in the water supply to prevent anybody getting sick. Our water comes from a deep aquifer that starts up at 16 Mile and comes down this direction. And what happened what happens underground is that water picks up manganese. And manganese is the black powdery material that you find in your toilet water closet or occasionally gets flushed out during line flushing. And what happens when you combine chlorine with manganese is that the manganese gets oxidized and it sticks to the pipes and slowly closes them off. So while it would have been a cheap and easy thing to put in a plant that would inject some chlorine into our water, what it would have meant is that all our pipes would have slowly closed to nothing. And so we had to put the big treatment plant in to remove the manganese. That has been very successful. There's no manganese in the water. The black powdery stuff in the bottom of the toilet bowl or the water closet is all going to disappear over time. However, the water hardness issue, which is the white spot that's left when your dishwasher dryer goes on or when you wash your car in the sunlight, that stuff, alkali, if you want to remove that, you can have whatever you're willing to pay for. However, what I'm led to believe is it would cost multi-millions of dollars to build a plant that would remove the alkali and a fleet of trucks to haul the alkali up to the landfill. It's just simply not feasible to do it on a community water system. Far better off that each household who's worried about the water, the alkali in the water, install their own water softener, and that's a far more cost-effective mechanism.
Thank you. Question from Mark. Now is the time to keep taxes low. How do you expect to pay the high cost of a very expensive bus service, more village staff, and a full-time economic development officer?
Well, low taxes are possibly a thing of the future because this town is running out of money regardless. For the last 5 years since '09, the village has been spending what is not really easy to find in the audited statements, but it is the cash reserve. It's an operating surplus. And in 2009, that sat at 1.8 million, and in 2013 it was 100,000. So we haven't used the landfill legacy so much, but we have used up all that operating surplus that we had. So we are in a bit of a tight squeeze. I think we have to look again. My calculations show that the water and the sewer are not quite paying for themselves. The sewer is very close, but the water system, our fees for that and our taxes aren't paying for that. So we have to look at some of those things very specifically. But shrinking at a time when you're feeling stressed is probably the wrong move. If we could succeed in getting this seniors housing and bringing some seniors into rentals in this town, we could start to broaden the tax base. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep adding people, and we have started to do that. Sometimes those folks don't feel like they have enough to do in town, or it's hard to sort of get into the groups. So we have some people that I've met through my campaigning that have said, yes, well, let's start welcoming these new people into town. Let's sort of do more for the adults too here. So I think that we can maintain control on the tax rises to a good degree, but we are going to have to watch carefully the capital spending, because that's where most of the money has gone lately. I'm very good in fundraising at leveraging funds. So we need to get the most out of what we can get from, say, the new NDIT, the Northern Development Fund. And to do that, we have to be ready. We have to know what it is we want. We have to have it budgeted. And the future budget for this town for capital is zero. And the worry that I have is if we spend anything on that, we're going to have to take it from the landfill of legacy, and we are paying that back to ourselves, but that's going to shrink with just a couple of road construction plans. So if we don't get those things properly budgeted, we are not in the running for grants because they want to see the budget that you have for the future. And other things that we can do, if we create a society that, say, is working on seniors' housing, suddenly that they can access funds that the community can't. They can go out to foundations, they can go to the real estate board, they can go out to all kinds of sources that the municipality can't. And that means we need a few more groups like that in town so that we can get after, for community work, go after the BC gaming funding or all kinds of different sources that the municipality alone can't do. So I don't think we've thought about that quite clearly enough, and we can, with the support of the community, we can bring some of these groups together, and you can be very effective in stretching the budget of the town to get some of these things achieved without having an effect on taxes.
Thank you. Question for both candidates. How much experience and success have you had in taking a strategic plan or marketing strategy from the planning stage to execution? Flip a coin.
Well, as I've said, this is one of the things that is the strength that I'm bringing here to the community. And I wouldn't have taken this step if I didn't think I had something to offer. I have started fundraising programs for a seniors care facility in Calgary that didn't have one before. When they hired me half-time as a fundraiser, half-time as the purchaser. I had never done this before in my life. I was purchasing everything for a nursing home, learning how to do that, and I was starting a fundraising program. And by the second year, when we had a good plan on the fundraising program and we had started to have some success and we had some ideas, a big golf marathon event and an anniversary dinner, and I did direct mail campaign there, they decided, okay, we need you full-time doing this because that's where we're going to get the most return on our money. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I talk about investing in somebody who can get some of this done for us. I don't think Mr. McMurray would have a big chain of restaurants if he thought he had to be in the office every day managing one of them the whole time. You hire people who get the stuff done, that let you build, and then you move on. Now, is that a permanent commitment, or do we start right there first thing? No, we won't hire that person right away. What we do is start doing some market research on what are our most likely prospects. Then we focus in on those. We do some of the things that we just have to do as a community, like this seniors facility. I really know that all the people in town who are aging right now, you're going to need that in 5 or 10 years, and we got to start now to get that worked out. So after we have done the market research and we can do those small steps and we try out some of these small projects that we need to do for the town, then we will have the experience and we'll know what it is we want to do. And at that point, we have a lot to market. Then we're attractive. Then we can tell people about the low taxes. Then we can talk to businesses about what we have that they can come here to benefit from. And right now, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle because we don't look that attractive. We have to work on some of that appeal. Thousands of people come through here all the time, and they really need to get a better impression from the face of the community, and then they'll come and look at the rest of it. But we need, by the time 3 years is up, we need to be marketing and getting out there and attracting those people to come and take a look at this town. And I think we will be successful if we do that.
Thank you, Mark. John?
Yeah, it sounds very much to me as if Marg is on a bit of a spending spree to hire people to do some of the work that I think that we have been pretty successful in doing. If you look at our strategic plan, say related to the Gateway Park, which is a lovely asset of the community. If you look at the airport development, which is coming along nicely, the planters and pavers that have been installed in the downtown core, all those things cost money, and they're all economic development initiatives. There are enough people travel through Cache Creek that what the council determination has been, let's make Cache Creek reflect how lovely we think this community is. And so we've spent money on Susan Graham, who plants the flowers and the planters, and she does an awesome job, I think you'll all agree. And those sorts of initiatives, I think, are what are going to go a long way in selling the community. When people see what it looks like here, oh boy, isn't this nice? They'll tell their friends, and they'll tell their other friends, and the next time you see somebody new coming to town, embrace them and show them what we've got. I think we're doing an excellent job in promoting the community.
Thank you, John. I'm going to take the liberty of combining three questions because they basically say the same thing. To John, if the landfill tonnage stays the same or less, what impact will it have on future taxation and growth plans? You say we have the lowest taxes. That is because of the landfill. Now, we will not have any landfill taxes. That is because of the landfill. Now, we will not have the landfill taxes will go up to pay for free will taxes go up to pay for free swimming and all the other free stuff with it? Will it not? And again, on spending and taxes, there was discussions about purchasing a new, very expensive garbage truck. Do you intend to consider buying one at a time when we need to be careful about spending? So those are all kind of...
Yeah, there's no present initiative to buy a new garbage truck that I'm aware of. But on all the other issues, I suppose all I can suggest to you is that we are doing the best as a council that we can. I don't know what else to say other than that we're in good shape financially. We have advantages over other communities. Other than that, I think we're good. Thank you very much. Well, right now you've got 200,000 tons of waste coming to the Cache Creek landfill, and that is scheduled to end in 2016. That's when the contract with Metro Vancouver ends. But in the meantime, Belcorp, with the cooperation of the village, has gone out and got an environmental certificate to allow for a new landfill that is called the Cache Creek Landfill Extension, brand new and different from what we have. That work is ongoing right now to establish Phase 1A of the new landfill. And we're not restricted like we have been in the past. We don't have to go down to Vancouver and say, hey, can we accept a little waste from Whistler or Powell River, and have them say, no, you can't accept that waste. We'll be on our own and able to market our capacity province-wide. The new landfill extension has an annual input capacity of 750,000 tons, and it can accept waste from anywhere in the province of British Columbia. So working with Belcorp, which we do on a daily basis, I would anticipate that we will be able to keep the landfill industry going in the village of Cache Creek.
Okay. Thank you, John. A question for Mark. You make it seem that bringing seniors and senior care facility in will fix all economic problems. What will you do if you're unable to accomplish that?
I'm using that as an example of something that we can and should do right away, and it's basically like a practice run on how to get this type of thing done in town, because the council has been really good on things. They're good at buying things, or fairly good at buying things. And they're good for the people who live here, but that does not turn them into an economic development strategy. And so now the challenge is we have to get things happening. We have to get bigger projects going from the bottom up. We're responsible, not the fact that the landfill, pursuing their own business interests, will do all the marketing and everything they need to succeed, and here we are, and we get to float on that income. What we need to do is diversify. We need to learn what it takes to put some of these projects together, and once we get going on some of those, while that's happening, then the council members who are working on different focuses, such as better tourism programs, for example, business strengthening and unifying the business community, focusing on travelers and really looking at what they need, all of those things will happen at the same time, but we can't do everything at once. So I was trying to be pretty realistic about what I think I could do in 3 to 4 years to get something going. Meanwhile, we start to learn as a community, what does it take for us to put these new initiatives into place? And there are so many interesting ones. I mean, if this health improvement situation doesn't work in this region, it's possible that this community could create a health cooperative, which has been done in a few communities in BC, which lets us get in control of our own medical practitioner and figure out a way to pay them, and that would benefit everybody, and it would give us control of our economic development, because health is such a critical need. So I'm just saying, these are the steps you take, because we haven't really done them before. We do smallish things, they're moderate, but they're challenging, and we get people into the mode of working towards that kind of a goal and completing it, and then we start looking, okay, what else will we do? What will we do next? And the more you involve people, the more that grows and builds, and the better the community gets. And I've talked to so many people who have ideas, and they just don't feel like there's very much energy or support if they bring something up or they try to get involved. It's kind of, council's been a little bit arm's length, I have to say. That's the feeling that I'm getting from people, and I'm going to tell you straight, this is what people are telling me. And this is my impression from being a business owner who came into town and never got really any welcome and really didn't get brought into the community at all. So I wasn't really that thrilled at the time about getting involved. But now is the time. We have to get this stuff done. I know little things have happened and they've taken so slow. Planters, all this stuff was here in 2004. Took 8 years to get them done. These are things we cannot go that slow on. We need some people who can put these things together and get us working on them, focusing. If we look at all those strategic plans, there's ideas that pop up, they drop off, there's no reason why, but that's not a strategic plan. That's just a bunch of ideas. Some of them happen, some don't. Nobody knows why, and that's just not the way we have to go into the future.
This is for both candidates. What are your positions in bringing new businesses into town? Would you purchase land to develop or help attract industry into town? And how do you propose to finance taxes and growth other than the landfill? Some of that's already been addressed, but I think this is more about the purchasing land and the positions in bringing new business to town.
Thanks very much for the question. Not at all in favor of purchasing land, industrial land, in order to attract business into the village of Cache Creek. That's a private sector initiative that I think should remain with the private sector. What government should be doing is facilitating an environment where business wants to come and purchase land in order to operate businesses. We have very good relationships with Belcorp, and those have built up over the last 20 plus years, and they have almost 100 acres of industrial land in the village of Cache Creek, and if we come up with a viable option for development on those lands, I'm sure they would listen very carefully and very favorably to utilizing a portion of their land for economic development.
Well, with regard to that, I wouldn't take that right off the table, purchasing land, if it looked like it would give us a return. what we have to do when we're thinking about this spending issue is we have to think about it as an investment. Will it give us a potential return on investment? But at the moment, I can't think of any reason why we would want to purchase land except for potentially to provide some basis as a matching component into a housing project that was going to go ahead. So those are possibilities for the future. Now, I've focused a lot on the needs of seniors, but one of the things identified in the Economic Development Report is a good potential for attracting they call them lone eagle workers. They're the people who work through technology on the internet. They can live anywhere and do their jobs. One of the things they might really like is a very affordable place that they can do that work from, and a place that's comfortable to live in, and a place that is really quite accessible to a lot of transportation routes out. A lot cheaper than Kelowna. We are becoming one of the really good affordable places and one of the last warm places that's affordable to come to. So we are not marketing that. So there's another direction we can market to and try and get those folks in here. Now, if we have a challenge with regard to internet, which I heard Dave Dubois say, then we should be trying to deal with that, and we should try and improve the situation if there is any way to do it. Because I know they have fiber optic to the village office, I believe. I think so. That's what I had heard. So basically, I think that there are so many options about what it is that we do that we just have to decide what is the best few focuses that we can take that will get us a return. And then, once we're starting to see results there, we will be able to grow.
A few of the people that brought questions to the first part of the meeting came back and asked if those same questions could be asked of the mayoral candidates, so that's where these ones are coming from. This is from Mr. and Mrs. Corley, to do with the road construction on McLean Road, that they learned there was new water shutoffs plus a complete underground storm sewer. For those that don't know, this storm sewer does run into a temporary line in the shoulder of the street past our place. My question is, when the village does do Park Street, can we, Bob and Helen Corley, expect the same? So it's in reference to their storm sewers and needing improvement.
Council, when they take on a project, they do it once and they do it right if it's at all possible. We've got McLean Crescent going on right now, and what they discovered was there was a culvert, essentially, that was the storm sewer line from McLean Drive down to where Councillor Hofer's house is. So that had to be dug up and replaced with a proper storm sewer. For the Corleys, I don't want any second-class job done on Park Road or on any other road in the village of Cache Creek, which is part of the reason I supported the barrier curbs rather than the rolled curb. Thank you very much.
Mark, the same question?
Well, I'm all with John on this one. I just would totally agree, and I think infrastructure is one of the things the community's done pretty well.
John, this is, I'm rewording it just because of the way it was meant to personally, that there seems to be an issue with permits. The question was placed in the first part to Lisa about land in exchange for permits. I believe it's along the walkway. If you could address that, please.
If I recall the issue, what it is development permit areas. And in the official community plan, there are 2 development permit areas. One development permit area runs adjacent to the Bonaparte River, and that is in order to be able to fulfill the vision of the village of Cache Creek, which is to have a walkway along the edge of the Bonaparte River. We've already started in the park. We want to be able to continue down to the Highway 97, get across the highway in some manner or another, and we have an agreement from Ken Moffat to be able to run a walkway up the side of his property, which is the old drive-in theater property, which would take you to Old Caribou Road. So if we can accomplish some of those things, I think we can achieve a walkway significantly greater than what we have now. Now, the development permit area is something that many other municipalities utilize in their official community plan. And if somebody applies for a development permit, that creates an opportunity for the municipality to implement the terms and conditions of the official community plan. As opposed to what I heard earlier, there's no requirement on the part of the property owner to build the walkway. The village would build the walkway. All we're seeking is a statutory right-of-way along the edge of the river, which is the riparian area anyway and not subject to development.
Have you got permission from fisheries? Did you not once build that walkway you're talking about in the park? Fisheries made you move it because it was too close to the river. You're talking about something.
Excuse me.
I don't think you're fully aware of the facts, sir.
If you could, excuse me. Excuse me, the reason for this process, I read, well, it's because the question was termed in an offensive manner, and that was my choice, and there's been another question pulled for the same reason. So if you have more questions, you can put them in, but please try to not be personal attacks.
It wasn't a personal attack, it was asking on the mayor.
Okay, we're moving on.
He was asked a question, and he said it is our right as a village to blackmail any citizen if we want.
Okay, we're going to move on now. What infrastructure needs, this is to Mayor Ranta, what infrastructure needs do you feel still need to be addressed? Is there a timeline to get that done? If it is within the next 4 years, why weren't those capital needs identified in the 5-year financial plan bylaw?
If there are significant expenditures, and there may well be some, I received an email from our administrator just this week saying we need to install a sewage outfall that is required to be below the level of the river. For whatever reason, our sewage plant outfall is not presently below the level of the river, and apparently that project is alleged to be a $175,000 project. That's significant from your sewer taxes or your sewer utilities. And so I emailed back the administrator and said, what we need to do is consider these budget initiatives, because he was thinking he should bring it forward at the next meeting and possibly ask council to direct that it be included in 2015. That's not the way we do things. What we have are long-term planning initiatives so that the $175,000 sewer outfall could be considered along with all the other spending initiatives. And one of them that we're looking at presently is what's called a pressure reducing valve on Stage Road. We had an outstanding presentation from Deb Channel, our former foreman of Public Works, who explained to council in a very understandable way the need to have a pressure reducing valve on Stage Road in order to ensure that we have adequate fire flows and clean water in the area of the sort of southern area of the community north of Highway 97. And that's probably a $125,000 project. We're looking for funding in order to do the planning for that project, but that would be a water initiative. The sewer outfall would be a sewer initiative. The remainder of any capital spending initiatives will be decided by the new council, whoever it is you choose.
Okay, this is for both candidates. Economic development officers are very expensive and historically seldom succeed in bringing in a major employer. Then they move on. Do you think it's wise to spend and risk a large amount of money on this? Would you agree that it would be better to have a group of local business-minded citizens to brainstorm ideas instead? And on top of that, there's another one that's in the same vein, is you seem to be against hiring people to do marketing. Why not think about contacting TRU marketing students or getting community members with marketing experience to volunteer services? That's to both of you. Go ahead.
The idea of an economic development officer, I think, is fraught with folly. It's a minimum $100,000 bill, and I've seen economic development officers be hired in Lillooet, Merritt, Logan Lake in just the last 2 years. Presently, they're all gone. And it costs $100,000 a year, and what did Lillooet get out of it? Guaranteed rugged. Well, good. But it doesn't necessarily produce jobs for people, and I think we're far better off to focus our efforts. It's an easy thing for a bunch of politicians to sit around the table and say, hey, I've got an idea, let's hire an economic development officer. And then at a forum like this, we can all look you in the face and say, okay, we hired an economic development officer. But 4 years from now, if no jobs come as a result, aren't you going to say, why did you do that? Or what went wrong? Why aren't there more jobs? The idea of hiring an economic development officer came in our economic development strategy that was developed by an economic development officer. What else would you expect?
And what do you think of having a group of local business-minded citizens or using TRU marketing students?
We did have a group of local business people help us, along with Randy Sunderman, who developed our economic development strategy, and that worked reasonably well. I think we've got a pretty good strategy. Working with TRU, I'd be happy to do that. We haven't done it yet, and maybe it's a strategy we could consider in the future.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, I've already said that I think that we have to start with what we can manage and try to get more people involved in working on the economic development in a couple of focused areas that are needs of the community, because that economic group, that development happens through a community group that will have to have the expertise to launch that type of a project. So that's an experience that I think we have to have in this town. But I will say there is no real replacement for having someone who you can take their expertise, they can put the materials that you want made into a marketing piece of material, and they will get it out and go and represent the town in places that we all can't get to, and they can do it really, really effectively. I'm not saying we'll hire one next year. That's probably going to be a bit of an argument on council. But the reality is, within the next 4 years, if we're going to move ahead, we probably need to do this. And I ask you to have an open mind. I would disagree with the idea that historically they're all terrible. I actually think that when you've got stuff to market, which I hear we do, but we're not marketing it, that's the ideal time to bring somebody in to help you out, because that's how businesses grow. Like I said, you don't set up an A&W and just manage that one and make it work. You hire other managers, and those folks work for you, and that's how businesses expand, and that's how we can reach out and have way more opportunity than we possibly can. We have an aging population. We might be a little bit too late on this, but I also think we have some new energy in town, and we have to start engaging people for sure. But they can't, they're here to relax. They're here to start a life that they're going to enjoy, not to spend full-time work doing this economic development. That's what you get when you pay somebody. I have to disagree about what it might cost, but the reality is they are expected to bring a return, and you don't have to keep them forever. They're not in the same category as your unionized staff or anything, and you can judge and gauge how well they're doing. Maybe we can find somebody local who might want to do that part-time, and that might be just ideal, but we haven't started to even try that, so I'd be willing to look at that.
A question for John. In your term, you appoint deputy mayors to act when you're away. How many different councillors have you appointed, and does this give them the opportunity to grow their abilities?
Thank you. Yes, we have a strategy where in a 3-year term, which is 36 months, Each of the 4 council members is appointed deputy mayor for 9 months, and they have the opportunity to serve in my absence during those 9-month stints.
Okay, this question was for both candidates. I think John's pretty much answered it. What is your position on the following? The condition of the, or the continuation of the landfill. I think you've pretty much given us your opinion on that. You can, yeah. So we'll give Marg an opportunity to speak to that. The continuation, yeah. What is your position on the continuation of the landfill?
Well, I think it's going to go ahead. And I think it's well along in the process. I don't quite know when the completion will be, and I'm not sure we understand what the revenue potential will be, or whether it'll be as high as it originally was when Metro Vancouver started coming to the first one. I think we need to really let the province know what a service we're providing by having this facility here, what we do for the community. I would almost like to see us celebrate the idea of us as a center for doing something that's essential service to the province, and try to change some of the impressions. I've heard people say that when they said they lived in Cache Creek, it's like, well, don't you smell the dump? And they have a totally wrong impression of what's going on here. So there's another angle of rebranding, imaging Cache Creek that really has to get done. I think it's going to go as a business. It is an essential service. It's right here. I think it appears to be really well designed and safe. So yeah, I think we'll go with a winning thing in that case.
Thank you. I'm not sure what the question is here. It's to both, and it says riparian zone permits are required to build or develop near any waterway containing any fish life. Do you want to speak to that? It's not really a question, so, but okay. My job to read them out.
Provincial regulation, the requirement to do a riparian assessment if you want to do development adjacent to a fish-bearing stream or a potentially fish-bearing stream.
Another question for John. How many committees are there in council, and how many do you sit on?
Got to be about 6 committees, 6 or 7, and I sit on one, the Budget and Administration Committee.
Okay, thanks. And this is for both, and I think it's kind of a repeat of what we've had so far. How do you plan to practically entice new businesses to move in and start up here? Please do not simply say we have good weather and low taxes. So I'll give you both a chance once more to just kind of reiterate what you're. I know, obviously, economic development is.
When I get into a really creative mood, I start thinking we only have a few little business locations left in town that are potentially usable. The Napa's one, but it's kind of sandwiched by pretty industrial spaces, so it's less likely. But we've got the building that the video store used to be in, and across from that, the old Napa, and we have a few of these places. I was wondering whether there's a potential for us to, someone talked about the RAPS, the Winding Rivers Arts and Performance Society, and I'm sure they would love to come up here and do things for us, and we need a group to focus on that, because cultural tourism is a really big thing, and it makes the town vibrant, and it would be a really good thing for us to have some events and activities in the summer, music in the park, music along the highway here, whatever we could bring that through their assistance. But those little buildings, I was thinking, wouldn't there be some artists who might want to come here and have access to these thousands of tourists if they could just set up a quickie business in the summer in some of those locations? So maybe we need to market those to some of the arts community. That's a thought. If we were to go ahead with bringing in a medical practitioner, we would have to provide an adequate office space for that person. That's a challenge, and that's something we're going to have to think about. Even in the health plan that's being developed through Ashcroft, one of the goals and visions is that we might have nurse practitioners who would spend at least a day in each community. So we, again, need a health space. So those are some of the things that I think we need to think about within the buildings that we have. I worry about the the Oasis Annex there that's just been boarded up, and what's been done in other towns. I wouldn't want to see it gone, because if it's gone, I don't think it can be rebuilt. Apparently the inspection said it had a good structure. That's one that I'm wondering whether the idea of maybe some punitive taxes might be applied to, or a discussion with the owner about, can we make a good arrangement? I don't know how it's good for him to have an empty property like that sit there. Could we figure out what that might cost to develop, so that we might have, again, bring those business spaces back, and maybe we could do some more work with students to have summer jobs running small concessions and ice cream and, I don't know, ice cream and kids' toys for the tourists. These are ideas. They can work sometimes, and sometimes they can't. They haven't been investigated. I'm saying those are a little bit long shots. But for sure, I think we could do some creative things by offering to some new communities the ability to maybe consider coming here and having a chance to run a business for the summer that could be really great for them because of the traffic we get.
Thanks. Did you want to add to that, John?
Over the years, I've been to several forums on economic development. There are 3 keys to economic development, they always tell you. The first is keep your existing businesses. The second key is create an environment where existing business can grow the number of employees that it has. And only after you've done the first 2 do you go outside the community, i.e. hire an economic development officer, and start marketing the village someplace else. Until we get the landfill and the future of that industry secure in the village of Cache Creek, until we create an environment where we can grow the number of jobs associated with the landfill industry and other industries in this community, then I think we'd be wasting our money on an economic development officer.
John, just one last question that came up for you. Mark says that the village's reserves have fallen from over $1 million to $100,000. Is this true?
Is that for me?
That's for you. Sorry.
No, that's not true.
Okay. That was easy. Okay, so that's all the questions that were submitted. So we'll give each of our candidates a minute to do a quick summation. Both of you are obviously very passionate about the village of Cache Creek and its future, and hopefully you can keep it to a minute.
Who's first?
You can go first because Marg went first at the start. So minutes start.
A minute. Only a minute.
Only
Hold
a
on.
minute.
When does the minute start?
Right now.
Okay. I have to tell you, I'm very worried with what I'm hearing. It sounds like we've got a variety of spending initiatives identified by my opponent, namely consider getting back into the bus service, which is probably a $40,000 a year, if not more, annual cost. Hire an economic development officer, $100,000 plus annually. Build seniors housing, although I do agree that we could probably consider some kind of housing society in order to facilitate that sort of thing. I think that's a reasonably good idea. A doctor for Cache Creek. We've already posted on the Interior Health website our interest in having a doctor located in Cache Creek the way there used to be. And that's already registered on the Interior Health website. And, you know, we're there. We'd love to have a doctor here. And how do you know unless you ask? Is that the minute already?
That's the minute
I was
already.
just getting started. I urge you not to step into the unknown and re-elect John Ranta.
Thank you, John. I'll give you the extra 10 seconds too.
There's no progress without a little bit of risk. And how much is the risk? How bad could the next 4 years be? How irresponsible do you think I could possibly be? How much do you really want to think about seeing something new and different happen in this town? Have the province see it. Have the people who come through here see it. If you want to do something with this town, Is it the same thing you've been doing for 24 years, or is it something else? That's all I'm offering you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming up. Reminder, the advance polls run next Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 at the village office, and general polling is Saturday, November 15th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. here in the community hall. Please vote.